Hey there everybody and welcome. In this next tutorial, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about making vector patterns using Adobe Illustrator. Let's go ahead and get started. As you can see here, we have a few pre-built vector assets for you to play around with during the demo. I'm going to go ahead and just take one of these assets, which is going to be this kind of peel asset, and I'm going to move it down here onto the bottom half of my screen because this is what we're going to use to create our pattern. Patterns are really easy to make. I'm going to go ahead and just scale this pattern out a little bit, and we're going to start with just a singular shape. You're going to go to Object, Pattern, and Make. When you hit Make, it's going to say the new pattern has been added to the Swatches panel, and then any changes made in editing mode will be applied to that swatch. That's good to know. And as you can see, immediately we kind of get into an isolation mode up here at the top of our screen where we can save a copy, we can finalize the pattern, you name it. But we also get our pattern options tool. Now the pattern options panel can be found in the window tab if you don't see it right away. In the pattern options panel, we can set the different way that the pattern is distributed. So you can see there's quite a bit of variety that you can create. We can name that pattern if we'd like. We can change the height and the scale of the pattern. We can even change how they overlap one another. So for instance, if we go ahead and space this in a unique way, as you can see here, by changing these, you can see you can then get a lot of overlapping. If I size to the artboard, they'll all kind of remain uniform. If I take away the size to the artboard, they're going to change as we go. We could continue to create different patterns within this by just copying and pasting within our scene. So if you wanted to, you could actually add new content as well to your patterns as you go. I'm going to actually do that. I'm going to add a little backdrop just to show you that it will add to that pattern. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to right click and arrange and send that to the back. Now that I have that pattern, that's a really important step to the little trick I'm going to do here in a second. I'm going to set mine up for grid and we're good to go. Once you hit done at the top, you're good. You get your original vector back so you can put that into place. But when I go now and draw a rectangle or a square in our case, I can now change the fill. So I'm going to go to my swatches panel. We can find our swatches panel up here at the top under swatches. I'm going to go look for the newly created lemon pattern, and sure enough, there you have it. Now, what if I wanted to overlay this pattern on something else? So you can see as I drag this around, it's kind of freaky, but I have almost like a transparent pattern. So I could do this a few different ways. One way is I could go to my appearance editor. And in my appearance editor, this is a really cool thing. We can actually add more strokes and more fills to an object. If I go ahead and say add new fill, and let's say I add a fill to be blue, I can then arrange these patterns just like my layers, they're distributed evenly. How cool is that? And at this stage, I even can then take my pattern and I can do something like expand its appearance, object expand to make them their own unique shapes, and everything is now selectable. How cool is that? At that stage, I have the ability to go through and add different effects. What we can do is we can go ahead and add an effect. So I'm going to go to stylize, drop shadow once more. I'm going to lower my opacity. I'm going to just lower the blur a little bit, and I'm going to change the color of that effect just a bit to be on the greenish side and hit OK. Now that I have this, I can do a couple other things. I don't have to go to pattern. I can actually go down to another option, is the repeat option. I could go to grid and it will create a grid of my icons. And that's kind of like an endless grid. It has a little bit more fine-tune options in the sense of if you're trying to organically draw something, you can do that. But that is the grid option. So let me undo and show you some of the other options within that segment as well. This is a pattern, so we could go to radial and do kind of radial patterns here. If you wanted to create kind of a nice kind of just radial pattern of lemons. That's really fun. Then the final one we can do is mirror. So if we wanted to mirror that, we could do that as well. As you can see, really, really easy. We can also go back to that pattern maker tool, hit OK. It's going to create that same pattern in which we can create all sorts of fun, just different overlaying types of patterns that we can use in anything in our creation. So with the essentials of patterns already underway, there's a lot more we can. Now that we have the essential patterns, there's a lot more we can actually do with this. Now Adobe has introduced a new pattern tool, and that is the text to pattern beta. Now, how is this used? Well, if I draw out my square, you kind of do this in reverse and then go to object pattern and you say text to pattern. I can now come in and use generative AI. We're going to do kind of vibrant colors, and we're going to say lemon slices on a blue background. We're going to let our generative AI take over in our pattern creation. Now, the one thing with this pattern creation that you're going to see right off the bat is it does take a little bit longer to create than your vectors. But as you see it being built in, we're getting some very fun, similar results that are coming in as vector, and they're pretty close to what we asked for. That one looks a little more like dots. This one, if I zoom in very, very closely, they are indeed lemons. And then this one, they're just a little bit bigger. The only thing with this that you may notice is if I go to my pattern and edit pattern, I'm going to have the same options, but I have to jump through it that way. We may create smaller patterns here, but notice no matter what I type, it's kind of messing up that overall grid. It's not an absolutely perfect tool, though. For a quick fix, it can be really, really fun to kind of play around with. And so those are your essential patterns for Adobe Illustrator. They're saved for you. You can always go back and click. You can really draw out any shape that you wish and fill it with that unique pattern, as you can see here. Patterns are a really fun way to add life, rhythm, and repetition to your final artwork. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I can't wait to see the patterns you create.